Twitter is banned in Pakistan and the authorities are unable to pinpoint the reasons behind it. For over a month now, access to X, formerly Twitter, has been restricted in various parts of the country. This unofficial ban followed accusations by former Rawalpindi Commissioner Liaquat Chatta against Chief Election Commissioner and Chief Justice of Pakistan, alleging their involvement in rigging the February 8th general elections. The newly elected government has distanced itself from any responsibility, while the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority, which has the constitutional mandate to block websites and apps, has consistently denied any disruption.
Not only is the ban unconstitutional, illegal, it is also a complete mystery because, look, in our hearings, they've come to court and said that what banned? Nothing's banned, it's working. And they've shown the court their phones. The PTA official came and showed the court its phone, saying, Mere paas to chal raha hai. And this seems to be the new strategy that they're going to pretend nothing's happening. And, once they've met their short-term goals, they're going to temporarily let us have our freedoms again until they decide that they're not worth it. And in the temporary time that they let us have them, they're going to convince courts that, we never lost them in the first place and it's just a case of mass paranoia.
On 18th of March, PTA directed questions regarding the issue to the Interior Ministry, claiming complete ignorance. When DawnNews English's Nadir Gurmani pressed further, they attributed the instructions to the government.
Now, the PTA can't come and say we don't know what's going on because that's just trying to pass the buck. And if Twitter can come on the record and say that, look, it's not us, it's not the platform itself, it's someone from within your country, then that should ideally be enough for a court to say, you're lying to us, which is what's happening right now.
Before delving into this matter, let's first clarify who holds the legal authority to block websites and apps in Pakistan.
Nobody other than the PTA is vested with the legal authority to block websites, and the legal authority that PTA currently has comes from Section 37 of the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, which commits website blocking authority to them. So for them to say that somebody else is doing it is factually incorrect, legally incorrect, and there are Islamabad High Court judgments to this effect as well, which say that PTA and only PTA can exercise these powers now that they have been given through law. And the federal government or anybody else, even if they lay information before them or give them any kind of directives, such directives are not binding upon the PTA, and the PTA must independently exercise these powers. And these powers also are subject to certain safeguards. Article 10A has to be read into them. Due process has to be read into them, as subsequent jurisprudence on Section 37 says. However, the PTA does not follow it. So it is false for them to state that anybody else other than them can block X.
Let's also explore how PTA got such powers.
So the powers that PTA has to block content online came through Section 37 of the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, and this was introduced by the Pakistan Muslim League through a 2/3 majority in 2016. The problem is that while the PMLN introduced this law, the social media rules were introduced by the PTI. Now today, going into the elections, we saw how various websites belonging to the PTI remained blocked. The complicity of every party that is in power to introduce laws and regulations that hamper and curtail free speech of citizens. They were robustly challenged. There were challenges before the Islamabad High Court. The rules were challenged. And since then, there has been a lot of jurisprudence that has been developed in section. Subsequently, when the rules were introduced by the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, while they were in power, they transgressed the bounds of what Section 37 permitted. So Section 37 is very bad. It's a copy-paste job of Article 19. It basically outsources what should be judicial and parliamentary functions to the PTA in an overbroad and arbitrary manner. In my view, this is an unconstitutional provision, but of course that needs to be raised before court. But everybody is very cautious in terms of what constitutional challenges to raise before court, so they don't get an adverse stamp of approval and there's no way to reverse them. And to date, the challenges pertain to breach of law and executive action. And those have been checked to some degree, but we know that it doesn't serve as a deterrent.
The law, however, is not so narrow. There are provisions wherein the government can request the PTA to block content.
And it's very different here from, banning the internet as a whole, because for that, the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority can be told by the government that, look, there is a certain time frame in which we require you to suspend internet access because there is a grave threat to the state, or there is a grave specific security threat that we know of, which is what they have used as an excuse on February 8th. And then later come to court and said, oh, there were like 1,000 people that were about to be blown up, so that's what we had to do. And you have to take their word for it, because if the government is lying to you about stuff like this, then, what's left? Because the law clearly requires any curtailment of access to online content to be bound between very, very limited lines. And it needs to be something that affects the integrity of the state, something that attacks Islam and its glory, something that can cause riots and unrest. And, beyond that, you don't really have any legal situation where the regulator can affect such a ban.
Although initially denying the disruption, Information Minister Ataturk acknowledged on 18th of March that the social media website was indeed blocked.
ये बताएं कि ट्विटर को बैन किया गया हुआ है, ये पिछले एक महीना हो गया है, तो इसके ऊपर आप लोगों की क्या हिकमत अमली है कि क्यों बंद किया गया है?
हम जब हुकूमत में आए हैं तो ऑलरेडी ट्विटर बैन था और कोई ऑफिशियल उसका नोटिफिकेशन नहीं है, बट ऑब्वियसली सबको नजर आ रहा है कि वो उसके सिग्नल, उसकी फ्रीक्वेंसी जो है वो उस तरह से नहीं चल रही और वीपीएन के जरिए उसको इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है। बिल्कुल ये बात दुरुस्त है। मैं ये चाहता हूँ कि हम एक चार्टर करें डूज एंड डोंट्स के ऊपर कि क्या रेड लाइन है जो क्रॉस नहीं होनी चाहिए, और बाकायदा सियासी जमातें इस पे बात करें।
Interestingly, he admitted the absence of an official notification for the clampdown. Now, in a case regarding the blocking of Awami Workers Party's website ahead of the general elections in 2018, the Islamabad High Court had emphasized the necessity of issuing a notification to the affected party and ensuring due process.
You see, there's two aspects to censorship in Pakistan. One is that there already exist laws that allow it, namely Section 37 of the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act 2016, which is also known as the Cybercrime Law, or PTA. So under that section, there is a due process on how the PTA is supposed to censor a website. They have to send a notice to a website. There has to be an option of appeal, there has to be an explanation, and there has to be a public notice. But none of that is being implemented.
In X's case, there has been no notification from the PTA or formal communication from the government.
Look, they're taking us to be fools. They're taking us to be these paranoid people who don't understand what's... So there used to be this very famous shark that would attack our cable near the Indian Ocean somewhere, where it would affect just us. And that would actually be the truth. We are a nation of 250 million people reliant on 2 internet cables. And if a shark eats one of them, then we're all down 50% of our speed. And I think there was a time when a shark ate both, or one major cable snapped and the whole system collapsed. So we're not a country of magnificent internet infrastructure in any case. But that's not even the excuse they're using. That's the excuse they used on February 8th, where they were like, technical masla ho gaya tha. But what do you take us to be? What do you take us to be? So we're supposed to be stupid, we're supposed to be paranoid, we're supposed to be fools, and we're supposed to be in the minority. Now, unfortunately, the majority of Pakistan understands what's going on. The majority of Pakistan sees it to be obfuscation and gaslighting by the government. And the majority of Pakistan has had enough, and it said so. But no one bothered to listen.
Now, this is not the first instance of websites being blocked in Pakistan. YouTube was banned for years, and over time, different governments periodically blocked Facebook, Instagram, and X. Most recently, social media apps like Twitter experienced occasional shutdowns during the 2024 general election campaign, particularly during PTI's online events.
So the blocking of websites we've seen is an issue that has persisted since 2006. WordPress, Blogspot, YouTube was blocked for 3 years. Facebook was blocked for a month in 2010. We've seen more recently TikTok, PUBG, Twitter also back in 2014 was blocked for half a day. So it's not as if these platforms, various platforms, have not been blocked. And from time to time, we see that this continues to happen. And this is not something that is going to stop. And this is what is worrying, because not only do platforms, we see that the internet as a whole is sometimes switched off. And it's completely contradictory, where on the one hand, not only previous governments, even the present government is talking about a digital Pakistan, but how do you envision a digital Pakistan when you cut off connectivity at any time, when you take away platforms?
A 2023 report by the Overseas Investors Chamber of Commerce and Industry estimated that digital transformation could add a staggering $60 billion to Pakistan's economy in the next 7 to 8 years. Consider digital banking, for instance. The State Bank of Pakistan reported a remarkable 29% increase in mobile app-based transactions, totaling 280 million, while internet banking transactions surged by 15% to 57 million. These digital transactions now outpace card-based ones, with e-wallet transactions experiencing a notable growth of 31% by volume and 37% by value.
We live in like a time where the internet and social media apps are so critical to so many people's employment and their jobs, and especially obviously content creators who depend on these platforms in order to produce, publish content and get eyes on them. And that's why brands are reaching out to them, because they develop this audience and they have this consistency. But when you keep taking these apps away, it disrupts that consistency, not only for your audience, but also for brands seeing you as reliable. And especially, Instagram, Twitter, and like the constant back and forth, especially with Twitter where it's coming and it's going, it's extremely frustrating. And not to mention, like I was saying about consistency, it breaks a rhythm that a content creator has with their posting, they're engaging. Because every time you disrupt the internet and you take us away from the apps, it also takes away that engagement with your audience. And it's almost like you have to rebuild again and again every time you come back. And it's extremely frustrating. And not only does it make doing the work yourself, you sort of lose motivation because you're fighting against this thing that you really have no control over. But it's scary to think that you might have a deadline for a brand that's paid you money or is going to pay you money, and you're messing it up. At the end of the day, like, brands, money, bills, they don't operate on the whims of the government.
Moreover, Pakistan's IT exports hit $2.6 billion last year. Experts predict that this could grow to $6.5 billion in 5 years and $16.1 billion in a decade, indicating a substantial contribution to the country's export earnings.
But also, what is most pressing is the economic impact of such a ban. If you have an ecosystem in which there is uncertainty, you do not know what website is being blocked, when it's going to be blocked, how long it's going to be blocked for, who's blocking it, and when will it be unblocked. So all these 6 questions really make a very uncertain economic environment. And seeing that the IT industry in Pakistan has been doing quite well, just imagine the potential it would have if we had a certain regulatory environment. The IT industry would be booming manifold right now. But foreign investors are hesitant to do business with Pakistan because they do not see a conducive business environment where there are arbitrary steps being taken without any transparency, and hence the economy is suffering more.
Coming back to the topic, while the government denies any involvement, civil society has filed a lawsuit against the PTA about the Twitter blockage.
Firstly, in our case, we try to build the law around the situation, which is that there needs to be a written specific order, there needs to be one of the conditions to be met. Freedom of expression is a fundamental constitutional right. And beyond that, we say that not only are none of these conditions met, there is no order. And not only is there no order, there is no acceptance that this is even happening. So we are living in this weird kind of limbo where the PTA is saying, we can't do this, we don't do this, which is against what the law says. because they're the ones who have to do this. If anyone else is doing it, then it's completely illegal. It's not even the half illegal that it would be if the PTA was doing it. And because they're able to say we don't know what's happening, they don't have to come up with the answer which the court would have had to ask them otherwise, which is that what are the reasons for doing this? I would like the court to be able to say that this is illegal and it is in contempt of court orders. And I would like something to come on the record so that we can then take it and move forward, so that we can establish a precedent where the process can't be the punishment.
A lot of PMLN leaders have spoken out against the ban on Twitter or X also. So they've given video statements in the Internet Colo campaign. And even the Information Minister, Atal Attar, has said that, he does not think it should be banned. So it clearly shows that the PMLN government that's come to power right now does not really have the power it's supposed to have as a government. And they're lacking that legitimacy that they should have as an elected government on paper, right? So we're really seeing a lack of authority on part of this government.
To sum it all up, access to X remains disrupted in Pakistan, and neither the authority nor the government can provide a clear explanation as to why. For further updates on this issue, follow DawnNews English.